Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike at Filmboy24. And have you ever wondered what would happen if you crossed the world's cheapest Super 8 camera with the world's most expensive Super 8 film? Well, you'd have a very cheap-expensive experiment. And that's what I like. Well, like I said in that goofy little intro, I did something a little off. That's because I do things that are a little off. And I took what I at least believe to be the world's most inexpensive, what I like to say cheapest because it's twofold, Super 8 camera and maybe Super 8 camera brand. This here Bentley BX-720 Super 8 movie camera. And I coupled it, they're a couple now, with this roll right here, brand spanking new direct from Kodak of Ektachrome 100D, the new 7294 stuff. So I coupled them and I wanted to see them, and just a quick aside, that's the first time I've actually ever shot with this particular camera. Now what's this camera? Well, it's the Bentley BX-720, I just said that. I was going to do an entire video first because I like to do camera reviews from time to time on this camera, but I decided against that, and I'm going to throw it into this video very quickly because you'll see in a second there really isn't a whole lot to review. There's the camera. Let me show you what you get. Now this one's in really nice condition. I would venture to say maybe if it was used, it was only a couple times. Came with the box. We'll set that aside. It comes with this handy dandy plastic lens hood. It comes with the instruction manual, which you can probably just toss. It comes with this nice pleather zippered cover that covers your camera. Has that little half zipper. Untuck the camera, scoot it out. It has all the earmarks of being a nice camera until you actually get it in your hands and start looking at it. Now, I'm not the guy that badmouths cameras. Well, maybe I am today. Because I just appreciate the art of Super 8 filmmaking, of all filmmaking, but also Super 8 filmmaking. But this one I do have to say, it's kind of an exception to that rule. There isn't a whole lot that I actually like about this camera. And I'll get to that in 1 second, but let me go over it very quickly. It is medium weight, entirely made of plastic, everything. And yes, I'm talking about the lens as well. Now, the lens isn't marked as far as focal length, so I'm going to just guess that it's probably 25, maybe 50 millimeters. I don't know. I'm going to go with 25 millimeters. There's no focus. It's a focus-free lens. And there is only manual exposure. Now, initially I thought that was pretty cool, but now I'm kind of wishing it also had auto exposure, which is a little uncommon for these really inexpensive cameras. The only other feature that this camera has is a diopter adjuster right here on top. For people like me, and I've talked about it before, who wear glasses, you can adjust the eyepiece in and out so that you don't actually have to wear your glasses when you're looking through the eyepiece. Now, it is a non-reflex camera. That means that when you look through the viewfinder, you're actually just looking straight across the top, and you're getting that parallax viewfinder feel, and you're hoping that it's somewhat near where what your lens is actually seeing. Now, back to the lens real quick. The lens is plastic. No, the lens is plastic. All of the lens is plastic, inside and out. So I didn't expect much going into this, and I'm glad that I didn't. It does sport a handy dandy little film counter down here on the bottom right. And the last thing I want to show you right there is the on-off button. It takes, let me open it here on the bottom. It does take AA batteries. Now, I'm not going to take these out to show you right now because I have to tell you, they were quite a pain to get in. I don't know if it's just this particular camera that I'm holding in my hand or if it's all BX-720s, but I'll show you a close-up of the internals of this battery compartment, and the little spring, one of the little springs on the bottom, it didn't like me, like a lot of springs, but it was very difficult to get that battery in, so once I actually got it in, I'm just decided to leave it in. So with that, you kind of got to keep that little, it has the little ribbon there that you pull on when you want to take the batteries out. There. Now, I mean, there really isn't a lot more to tell you. I can open it up and show you the inside. I'll give you a close-up. There's not even a generic marking on the inside of this camera. It doesn't really need to tell you that it only meters properly 40 or 160 film, because there's no pins in it at all. None. And when I say none, there's not an ASA or ISO pin up here. There's also not a daylight or tungsten pin at the bottom that gets depressed. It is quite literally a 100% manual, no filter. What you see is what you get Super 8 camera. That's all there is to this. Has the 1/4-20 little socket on the bottom if you want to put it on a tripod. Let me show you how much noise it makes. Let me turn it on, and I'm going to put it a little bit near my mic. My first thought was it kind of sounds like you know, one of those trains, a little toy train that goes around the track, but not the good one, the cheap one. Anyway, so it also comes with this little lens hood, and I'll show you. This might possibly be the best feature of the whole camera. It's pretty solid plastic, but it has just a kind of like a little 1/8 turn, and it locks on the front. So it keeps a little bit of the light out. Now, what did we get from this camera? It only runs at 18 frames per second, by the way. Oh, and one more thing. Yeah, you thought I was done. Like I said earlier, it is only manual exposure. Hear the clicks? It just has the aperture ring here. One of the things I don't like about it, it goes from 2.8, f2.8, which is wide open, and it stops down to f16. Now, I do wish it went a little bit bigger than f16. As you'll see in a minute, we took this down to the beach in my local area, and I really needed more than f16 to be able to, you know, shoot it properly. So what did we do with it? Well, I thought it might be kind of a fun experiment. By the way, I paid $10 for that camera. $10. And I feel like I probably overpaid a little bit. You can find these everywhere. Just about every thrift store you go to, or garage sale, or flea market, or any of those little boot sales, or whatever that you go to, there will be a Bentley in there somewhere. And I don't mean the fancy schmancy car. I mean the Bentley Super 8 product. They made a couple other Super 8 cameras as well, and they made a little projector with a TV screen on it, and I've had some of those in the past, and the quality is about the same, I would say. Like I say, I think I overpaid for this a little bit, but with that, I decided it would be a fun experiment, which I did right here. You can see the film's out of there. It's in here. And I ran the most expensive roll of Super 8 film in the world, and I'd say it's probably worth it because Kodak's doing a fine job of fine-tuning these cartridges. I was part of their little test program for improving these cartridges and making them run smoother and not jam up in your camera, and I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with what they've done. So the expense is high. There's probably not the demand for this kind of film that there was in the 80s and 90s. So the price is going to go up. We have to deal with it. But it's a beautiful film. So what better way to, well, have fun here at Filmboy24's channel than marry the two. Now, I'm going to show you the film and what I got. My wife and I took a little trip just down to the beach, kind of near our local area here. And one thing I should mention, and I didn't realize it until we got down there, was there were people down there that were really affected by the last hurricane that came through the Central Florida area, Hurricane Ian, and those effects still show down where we went down to the beach. Now, I did film a little bit of the effects of that hurricane and those people's homes down there that are built right on the beach, as you'll see in just a second. Keep that in mind. Like I say, I didn't go down there to film that, but that's where we were, so I did, and it kind of gives you some idea again, just how bad some people had it down there on the beach side. And then there was a tiny little bit, we didn't finish the cartridge down there, tiny little bit that we filmed in the backyard or the back garden back there. So you'll see that at the very end. I had to cut a few pieces out because it just, you're gonna see in a minute. Let me show you what we got and then we'll talk about it in a second because it's a mess. Here it is. I warned you. You probably could get worse results. Maybe if you made a Super 8 camera out of a coffee can and some duct tape. I don't know. You probably could get worse results. I mean, overall, everything's viewable. For a $10 camera, I mean, I guess if you were running cheap black and white expired film or past its freshness date film in the camera, expect maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I'm so torn with those results. They're not good, but I expected them to be even a little bit worse. Now you could see in some of the scenes at the beach itself, especially out over the water, it's pretty blown out. I could not stop down lower than f16, and it was a pretty shiny day or sunny day on the beach. And when you're on the beach or in the snow or something like that, you really need an f22, sometimes even higher than that, f32. This goes to 16. Sunny 16 rule didn't really work for me, but I did kind of compensate for it a little bit in post. Another thing I will mention, the right side of the picture, you can kind of see that weird vertical flare or something. I don't know if it was just because it's a plastic lens, more than likely. It was a weird kind of flare against the lens. So that's probably the issue. But it was very annoying. And I did clean the lens with a nice soft dry cloth before I filmed. The left side, there's vignetting. It's not from the lens hood because I took the lens hood off at one point and it still is doing the same thing, which I also found odd. Because, I don't know, unless they anticipate you're going to crop anyway. What I want to show you is, it also had some really funky frame lines that I'm just not used to. It was almost, they were very thick, top and bottom frame lines, and they kind of almost double exposure looking, like layered frame lines. So what I'm going to do really quick, I'll probably just put it right here. I want to show you that's not been stabilized, but can you see, look at that, how isn't that weird? How the frame lines, they're really thick, and everything sort of bounces all over the place too, in relation to the sprocket hole. So the registration is very poor on this camera. It has a very odd gate, which likely is due to the insanely cheap plastic lens. What I would probably say is, if you didn't have any other choice and you wanted to shoot film, I might actually try some black and white, maybe some vision stock in this, just to see what happens. Probably black and white at the bare minimum, just to see if we get anything at all, anything better, anything worse. But if it's all you had to film with, well, you could probably get by. I definitely would not recommend rushing out and getting one. I hope you enjoyed this fun little experiment and this tiny little breakdown for this very inexpensive Super 8 toy. If you did, you can show me. I would appreciate it. You can show me by tapping that like button. I would really appreciate it. It takes less than, I was called out on this, takes less than 1/4 of a second, but they said no, it takes a little longer than that. And it's free. And one last thing, I did process this film and scan the film myself. I did it in an E6 kit, brand new, just mixed, and I scanned it on my MovieStuff RetroScan Universal Scanner in 2K, just so you know where the film was processed and scanned. Do me a favor and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of these zany little features. It would mean a lot to me, a lot. And you'd become part of this whole little cycle, this group. We have live streams. We do a lot of chatting. We're chatty. And until the very next time that I see all of your beautiful faces, and I mean beautiful. That's the one. So was that. I'll see all of you on the very next go-around.